So he's always looking for artists to record his songs, and you can hear more of Don's music at reverbnation.com/Don Lawson. You can also check him out on Twitter at Don Lawson Music. Thank you so much, Don, for your contribution to Moments of Clarity and ending the stigma on mental health. It's awesome.
Now back to Moments of Clarity with Tiffany Werner, licensed mental health counselor. To engage in the conversation, call 866-826-1340. Here's Tiffany.
Hi, and welcome back. And if you're just tuning in, this is Moments of Clarity. And my name is Tiffany Warner. I'm a licensed mental health counselor, and I'm your host. And I'm sorry for everyone that's trying to call in. I don't know what's wrong with the 800 number. We're trying to figure that out. But anyway, we're talking about substance abuse, addiction, recovery, and the 12-step program. And welcome back my guest, who's the producer and host of The Path to Authenticity, Tom Gentry.
Thank you.
Thanks for being on the show today. Let's talk about your podcast, The Path to Authenticity. And what is the path to authenticity, and how do we get there, in your opinion?
Yeah, well, that's kind of what it's all about. There's a comment that someone made. I'm looking at the Facebook page, and a comment someone made at the beginning of it is, substance abuse and addiction are among the forms of sedation that prevent us from looking at the root of the lies we tell ourselves each day. And
it's poetic.
That kind of relates. That kind of relates to what, why the path to authenticity for me. You know, what I've come to realize is that I was denying myself. You know, and I've talked a little bit about like the culture of my family and how I entered into alcoholism, but there was, I've done a lot of work on myself. There's a lot more going on. There were reasons for me to try to sedate myself and not feel what I wanted to feel. And a lot of it had to do with me not being true to myself, not being the person who I wanted to be, and instead being the person who I thought would fit or in the family or who would not be abandoned or whatnot. I adapted to survive the environment I grew up in. And then I turn out being someone who's like really not who I am, not true to myself. And what I've come to realize is that the more true to myself that I am, the more successful that I am. And, I kind of, the name for the podcast kind of came up a few months ago because I was in this interaction with someone who was just being, from an emotional standpoint, just completely fake. And I realized, this is just not what I'm about. I'm about experiencing my emotions and dealing with reality, and becoming more authentic has been a real turning point for me. So I decided I wanted to do a podcast for a while, and what I decided to do is have the kind of underlying theme be personal authenticity. Talk to people who, at least from my point of view, are authentic, are true to themselves, they're genuine people. And how did you become that way? And for me, I like to focus on artists and writers because creative people, it tends to be a little more obvious how they decided to dance to the beat of their own drummer. And I'm really interested in that kind of stuff. So I interview people. So I kind of look at it like I want to talk to people either who are authentic or people who can help the rest of us become increasingly authentic. So I speak to therapists and coaches. I have an episode coming up with someone who is an emotional acceptance coach, which, is a whole little branch of the tree of the helping profession that's kind of coming up now. She's in the UK. I just did a podcast with a guy who has a podcast about, the history of the band. I'm a big music guy, so just the idea that someone will come up with a creative, he's really being himself in doing that. That's coming from a deeply personal place when someone chooses to do a project like that. So, it's pretty broad. The subject matter that I try to cover, but I always try to kind of bring it back to how does this relate to personal authenticity, and how can we learn from what this person is saying and doing.
That's awesome. And I encourage you guys to listen to Tom's podcast. I actually was a guest on it yesterday, and he hosts a good podcast, and he does really well and interviews interesting people, and it's The Path to Authenticity. And how do people find your podcast really quick? We have about a minute left.
Well, there's the website is thepathtooauthenticity.com. It has links to all the different platforms where you can listen, and also to the website where the podcast is actually hosted. You can find it on Instagram and Facebook, both at The Path to Authenticity.
At The Path to Authenticity. That's amazing. And keep up the good work, Tom. I'm honored to know you, be able to call you a friend, and we'll be in touch and continue to network. I encourage you guys to follow him at The Path to Authenticity. His name's Tom Gentry, and you're listening to Moments of Clarity. We'll be back tomorrow, 12 to 1, every Thursday, Friday, 12 to 1. Thanks for listening, and be kind to yourself and to someone else. You don't know what everybody's going through. Take care.
Now it clicks, moments of clarity. Now I hear moments of clarity. Now I get it, moments of clarity. To yourself, be kind, it will please your mind. Hope is following you. Don't abandon yourself. Find your joy. Ask for help.